Hello and welcome to Warhammer Wednesday. Grab yourself a hot beverage and join me as I review the Legio Custodes Contemptor-Achillus Dreadnought from Forgew. This Dreadnought will set you back £56. A normal Contemptor Dreadnought, because the arms are £9.50, will set you back £54. So it's £2 more. Of course, it's for the Custodian Guard. What do you get for your extra £2? Well, you get a modular sort of tray where all the parts come in, and these are very useful for your spare parts. You get it checked by a human. You get a nice box for it to come in, which you don't get in the Custodes Dreadnought. And on top of that, you also get this lovely CAD designed instruction manual. Now, it would just be fantastic if all Contemptor Dreadnoughts came with this, but I can see that obviously the newer models are the ones that come with this, because the Leviathan came with that, and the Leviathan will set you back £72. So there's a big jump between that and the Leviathan, but this quite happily sits around the normal sort of Contemptor Dreadnought price point, which is great. I will do a full comparison vid, and that will also come out today as a separate video with the Custodes right there, and I'll have the Achilles sprayed gold as well by then. So hopefully you'll join me for that, and where I compare the two, which one you should get rules wise, things like that. What I'll do is I'll just have a look at the model, I'll talk about the pose, where I got my inspiration from and things, and then I'll do some size comparisons. So I scoured the internet looking for a decent pose, because I didn't really think that was a decent pose. It's okay, and I've got custodians in a similar pose to that. Likewise, there's actually three poses in here. So there's the one on the front, then there's this one, which again isn't too bad, and then there's that one too, where he's just holding it. It looks like he's just picked it up and he's just walking around. I wanted a really dramatic pose to reflect the rules of this model. When he charges and he rolls a hits of a 6, the weapon becomes destroyer, and I wanted to reflect that. I've modelled him in sort of a leaping pose, like he's just landed on that foot and stabbed this Achilles dread spear directly into either a space marine or the leg of a titan or another dreadnought, whatever. I wanted to do that. You could have him firing with the Corvée Laspulsar, because that's quite a decent weapon too. I'll talk about the rules in a moment. But yeah, I wanted to have him in sort of a very active, exciting pose. So what I'll do now is just a quick size comparison. I have Cypher right here. As you can see, it completely dwarfs him, him being like a normal size Space Marine, I suppose. And that could actually be, yeah, it could work. And then next to one of Games Workshop's other new miniatures, Reboot Gilliman. As you can see, going for the cheap shot there. So yeah, Gilliman's sword is sort of almost taller or similar size. But I thought I'd just show you size comparison between a Custodian Contemptor Dreadnought and a Primarch. So might be quite useful for you. And then I'll just touch on the pose again and where I got my inspiration from. So I've got a sort of a little Custodian Guard army sort of appearing. The gold is going to look more like this. I just haven't sort of dry brushed it with a lighter gold. I've literally just washed it. So pose wise, you can see I've got a lot of inspiration there. But I didn't want it to have the same pose as any of these. I was more inclined to have the spear upright, and if I do get a second one, then yeah, I'll definitely explore that route. Probably have him firing with his wrist-mounted weapon while holding the spear vertically. Even though the Custodes, obviously I've got a Custodian Guard in the same pose as that one. But yeah, the actual instruction book does come with the three poses. I'm not really a big fan of that pose, although that's my favourite out of the three. Then there's that one, and then there's him just walking, holding it. I don't know, sometimes Forge World, I'm not a huge fan of their poses, and I like to explore my own. Never feel compelled that you have to do the same. I mean, obviously with Games Workshop models nowadays, you sort of forced, you know, go with what they've modelled, whereas resin and Forge World models, that's not usually the case. It gives you a lot of freedom, and I love the building side of the hobby. As you can see with unpainted models, the building side of the hobby for me is the main thing. Well, it's the building, then the collecting, then the gaming, then the painting. So I hope that helps you sort of understand my models and what I've collected and what I've built and what I haven't painted and things, even though that might be sort of counterintuitive for yourself, and you probably think you probably enjoyed painting the most and you want to get the model out the way with built, painted up, and then there's the model, and you might game with him, or you might just like the game inside of it. Anyway, going off on a massive tangent. So yeah, that's the reasons sort of why I've gone for that pose. Really like it. So we'll just move the custodian guards out of the way, and now I'll talk about his rules, which are in the Inferno book. The Legio Custodes Contemptor-Achillus Dreadnought. It'll set you back 200 points. Obviously I'm taking the rules from book 7 Inferno. It is an elite choice. It's got weapon skill 6, ballistic skill 5, strength 8, front and side armor 13, rear 11, initiative 5, 4 attacks, 3 hull points. Of course, it comes with the 2 Dreadnought close combat weapons with inbuilt Ladstrom storm bolters. Like I said before, mine's equipped with twin-linked Adrathic Destructor. Comes with smoke launchers, searchlight, refractor field, extra armor. Special rules is fleet, move through cover, and counter attack. I mean, you can have him just as 200 points, but usually if he's got the spear, then he's got this dread spear with the inbuilt Corvée Laspulsar, which is another 40 points. So you're looking at 240 points pretty much. And then if you want the twin-linked Adrathic Destructor, you've got to pay another 15. So that's 255 points for him right there. You can also equip him with a single Infernus Incinerator, just a single one. Now, the Contemptor-Achillus Dread Spear, basically it's a scaled up version of the iconic spear that the Custodian Guard have, where it meshes ranged weaponry with melee capability. Now, the Dread Spear itself is obviously ranged melee. Its strength is 10, and then there's a star next to it. I'll talk about that in a moment. AP 2, melee, impaling, and master crafted. So impaling, this is the rule I talked about at the start. On the turn in which he charges, any rolls to hit of a 6 in assault means that it's resolved at destroyer hits. So with 5 attacks on the charge, you might have a chance of getting a 6, and at which point you've got that destroyer hit. So one could argue it's nowhere near as effective as sort of a Knight Titan in close combat with their Reaper Chainsword, which is a D weapon. But it's nice that you've got that little chance of doing something. The one thing I will say is it doesn't have Armor Bane or Flesh Bane or anything like that, but it is a strength 10 AP2 weapon with 5 attacks, and it's got 3 hull points and the refractor field, which does give him that 5+ invulnerable save from shooting and melee attacks. That does help his survivability, and the fact that his front and side armor is 13. The only thing he's sort of lacking is a good deployment method. It doesn't say you can put him in a Dreadnought drop pod or anything like that, because he is Custodian Guard, and that's what I find with both of the Dreadnoughts really, that they look absolutely incredible. The rules are pretty decent, but the deployment method, as a Dreadnought, they're always going to be vulnerable. They're as vulnerable as a normal Contemptor, one might say. So there you go. That is the end of my review. I think it's an absolutely fantastic model. Really would recommend you pick one up if you're thinking of it. It's just incredible for the £56, and a great addition to the force. And I can't wait to see their heavy Contemptor Dreadnoughts that they'll be releasing at some point. So thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor protects.